In a society that cell phones, laptops, and the internet dominate, each of us have the power to express our ideas to everyone around us. We take to social media and send out a tweet and hope to see retweet upon retweet. But have you ever thought about how this modern day technology has affected the literary world of the 21st century and how it differed from the authors of those great classics? In the early 1900s, most authors traveled thousands of miles to seek the true meanings of life. The lost generation has a special connection to the literary world and differs greatly from ours today. Within the next few minutes, we are going to explore why, how, and what each generation of authors wrote and continue to write. Let's first take a look at why these groups of writers wrote as they did. The lost generation is the group of writers that came of age during World War I. They were mostly American writers that immigrated to Europe so they could write and work. Most of the writers that filled the streets of France and Italy felt as if their life couldn't be repaired after the war. According to Samuel Hines, the lifestyle of traveling felt more appealing than staying in America, where virtuous behavior didn't exist, faith in religion was broken, and morality was questionable. They believed America was intolerant and materialistic. Most of these authors took to partying and living lavish lives, which to me seems a tad hypocritical. Sometimes it is unclear why authors write today. While many are outspoken, they seem to speak for themselves and not a generation. Many take to the internet and express discontentment with issues, while others crank out novel after novel. A novel is one of the most vital cultural resources we have, a private, potent means of sharing daily life with one another. The novel is a platform from which the voice of a generation speaks. This brings many to wonder if the current generation has a voice in the literary world. Next, let's examine how the authors conveyed their writings. Gertrude Stein, Ernest Hemingway, and F. Scott Fitzgerald were some of the main players in the lost generation. Each writer had their own style. Gertrude Stein was born and raised in the United States. She hosted gatherings in her home in Paris and was a mentor for many young writers around her. According to Samuel Hines, she was considered an expert on literary motivation and talent. Ernest Hemingway actually served in World War I. He was known for using sparse language and even focused on using silence in some of his works. F. Scott Fitzgerald was a lieutenant in the war. He was very intrigued by post-war America and often traveled back and forth to Europe. He was the epitome of excess partying and spending money. In English classes throughout every high school, classics such as A Farewell to Arms and The Sun Also Rises fill the bookshelves. Books from the 1920s are still relevant today and have as much meaning now as they did before. Are the books that the 21st century authors write as memorable as one written by the early 1900 authors? I guess that's a question that time will answer. Authors today have access to information through technology, and the possibilities are endless to what they can create. Current authors have taken novels in new and exciting directions, and they have the advantage that their literature is more accessible as ever through the outlets of social media, blogs, and electronic devices. Ivo Oliveira put it best when he said, "The death of print has been much heralded over the past decade, precipitated by the rising accessibility of devices like tablets and smartphones. It seems anyone can write and sell on Amazon, making it harder to separate the good from the bad." Finally, let's discuss what subject matter each group chose to write about. According to Kate O'Connor, two of the most common themes of the lost generation writers were decadence and idealizing the past. These authors were revealing the shallow, frivolous lives of the young and wealthy after the war. Rather than face the destruction of war, many writers created an unattainable image of the past. They glamorized self-destruction through drinking and partying. Such can be seen in The Great Gatsby, where the life Fitzgerald was living was portrayed through Gatsby's character. Currently, many novels are fiction, politics, and science fiction. Books such as The Hunger Games, Harry Potter, and The Fault in Our Stars are making a statement not only on paper, but also on movie screens around the world. This century is producing writers who are changing the language and expressing new ideas. Many feel we do not have great authors anymore because of the change in medium. However, the artistic mechanisms involved in creating works of fantasy worlds and superhumans is indeed challenging and describes the new thought process of this generation. To conclude, every generation seeks a way to find their voice. Whether literature is produced while roaming the streets of a foreign city or sitting behind a laptop in a coffee shop, expressing one's ideas has always been a top priority despite the generation. Classics came from the lost generation, just as 21st century writers aspire to achieve such writings. Only time will reveal which ones will endure to become classics. Thank you.